you. All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for having me. It's really nice to see you all out there this morning. I'm here today to just talk a little bit about the development outlook in the Portland market. And so I was going to start and just tell you a little bit about our firm and what we're working on today, and then spend a little bit of time just kind of talking about what we see as the outlook going forward in the next couple of years for multifamily apartment development. So I work for Urban Development Partners. We're a firm. We were founded in 2006 in Portland. So we're a multifamily developer, among other things. We also do apartment. We do a little bit of hospitality and some office, as well as ground floor retail, pretty much everything except industrial, which maybe is our mistake because that's an area that is actually doing well right now. We also are a property manager. We do asset management, and then we fund and we raise and manage our own investment funds that we invest into our projects. So a little bit about who we are and what we're doing these days. Currently, we have under management and development in our markets about 725 apartment units. We have 2 hotel properties, one that is stabilized and complete and the other in pre-construction, representing 140 hotel keys. A little over 100,000 square feet of retail, predominantly ground floor retail at the base of buildings that we've built in the urban core, and about 280,000 square feet of office. So about $500 million in total development costs, either under management or in our pipeline currently. So just a little bit about our investment strategy. As our name denotes, we're an urban-focused developer. We are currently raising our 8th discretionary fund, and we typically finance 2 to 10 projects per fund. Our perspective is a longer-term hold. We typically will own and keep under ownership our funds or our projects for approximately 6 to 8 years. And as I talked about earlier, we are focused on a mix of asset types and geographies. So we do like to, for our investors, not only have multifamily assets in our funds, but we'll mix in some office or retail as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple of our projects that are in the pipeline right now, just to give you kind of a sense of what we're working on and some of the projects that are sort of typical in our urban markets these days. So this first project is 550 Southeast MLK, actually just a couple of blocks from where we are here today. This project is obviously a Central East Side project. It's located in an opportunity zone, so we've used opportunity zone equity to finance this project. We just started construction on this back in July, so actually if you're driving down MLK on your way back to your house or office, you can see the construction crane out there working on this project right now. It's going to be 132 units with 3,700 square feet of ground floor retail and 60 parking stalls. This one was subject to our inclusionary housing policy here in Portland. So many of us have talked a lot about this policy and what its impacts and how it's playing out in the market. This is a project that actually will comply with the inclusionary housing policy. It came under the Central City policy, which is really for projects that are in the central core or have an FAR that's greater than 5:1. And for us, this project will receive a full tax exemption on its entire multifamily square footage for 10 years. Because of that full property tax exemption, it's actually, the policy is not as punitive for us as it would be for some other projects that only receive exemption on the affordable units. So we were able to make it pencil. We still are required to keep those units affordable for 99 years. And so the affordability will last a lot longer than the property tax exemption, but the benefit of having a property tax exemption for the full 10 years on the entire project, not just the affordable units, effectively negates or comes close to negating that impact. Now, of course, the tail is significantly longer than the actual exemption, but we were able to make it work because we are benefiting from a full property tax exemption for 10 years. And this project is predominantly studio and 1-bedroom units. We found in this market in particular, that's been an effective product mix. So another project I just wanted to highlight today, Jerry talked a little bit about the suburbs and the activity that we're seeing kind of in the greater Portland metro. We are not immune to that. We have moved out to a couple of suburban areas, including a project in Lake Oswego. This is actually a two-project site. It's a strategic site located in downtown, and it's a partnership with the city of Lake Oswego. So they actually own the land. We will acquire the land from them prior to starting construction. And they had a number of requirements and things that they wanted to see done on this site in order to agree to sell it to us, including requiring a new hotel. The city has identified a need for a hotel in its downtown core for a number of years. And so we agreed to partner with them on delivering a new hotel in the downtown core. A couple of the challenges in Lake Oswego that sort of differ from what we see in downtown Portland was just some much higher parking requirements in the downtown core. Portland, we often benefit from significantly lower parking requirements as part of our zoning code, but out in the suburbs, we're often faced with higher parking ratios required, which really drives costs in many ways. Also, Lake Oswego has a pretty strict design code. They have design criteria that are it's fairly prescriptive, so we spent a lot of time working with them to make sure that the building design was going to comply with their design code. And finally, neighborhood input. It's important everywhere, but in suburban markets that haven't seen a lot of development in recent years or significant amount of development, the neighborhood tends to be a really important stakeholder for us. So we find that engaging early and often with the neighborhood is a successful strategy for us. So rather than sort of keep them at bay and fight them off, we bring them in early, ask them for input, and that was a successful strategy here as we went through our design entitlements. So just a little bit more about this project. We have, as I said, it's two projects really. It's an 83-key hotel with a ground floor restaurant. We'll also have a rooftop terrace and bar, which was something that the neighborhood and the community was really interested in seeing in this location. Then the second project is 67 apartments with about 6,000 square feet of ground floor retail, 130 parking spots between the two projects, which is significantly higher than we probably would have built in Portland. And we're hoping to start construction in the second quarter of 2023. Just a couple of other notable facts about Lake Oswego. The retail in Lake Oswego has been very successful. We've struggled a lot, as many of you know, those of you who own or manage urban projects in Portland. Ground floor retail, neighborhood retail has been a struggle in Portland. We've seen a lot of vacancy. We've seen a lot of tenants moving out. We're seeing a lot of flight toward suburban markets right now. I'm getting a lot of calls at this early stage about the retail in Lake Oswego, which is highly unusual. We're typically not used to seeing retail tenants come into our buildings until construction is effectively done. I will likely sign a letter of intent on this project before I even start construction, which is great, but very unusual. So we're excited about that. It does represent, I think, a little bit of, folks just saying, I'm not sure that I can continue to make it in downtown Portland, so I'm looking for other alternatives. So a little bit about how we're feeling about the next few years. So we obviously heard some unsettling news from Jerry, and we're not immune to that. But I'll start out with some good news. At least from our perspective, these higher interest rates typically transfer to more renters for all the reasons Jerry talked about. People are not able to buy homes right now. They're staying in the rental market longer. So those of us who own apartments in the urban core and even in the metro area, I mean, we're seeing historically low vacancy rates. We've seen, rents really escalate through COVID. We do expect that to even out. We don't expect to continue to see those 8%, 10%, renewals, but the market will continue to be constrained. We see demand continue to outpace supply. Even though there is a pipeline, as Jerry said, I think we anticipate a lot of those projects won't make it all the way through to construction for a variety of reasons. So when we look at the greater kind of landscape of development, we expect to continue to see good demand for multifamily. In-migration is continuing again, much slower than it was pre-pandemic, but all the economic trends seem to say that people are still moving to Oregon. California is still a place that people seem to want to leave. So we continue to see good jobs and educated workforce come via that in-migration. And one of the things we find is that well-located and well-designed projects continue to be a key differentiator. It's kind of not rocket science, but to the degree that we're really thinking specifically about where we're locating our projects and being focused on good design, high-quality design, that seems to be a successful formula both for financing and for ultimately operations. Obviously, some headwinds in the market. For operators, it's been a tough couple of years. You guys are all out there. You know what it's like. We continue to see a challenging regulatory environment. I was on a panel last week up in Seattle, and we were talking kind of collectively between Portland and Seattle about all the challenges that, regulatory zoning and other public policy brings into development. And on the face of it, there's a lot of really great policies that we see implemented, that are, by all accounts, good ideas, good concepts. Things like having to do green roofs or extra bike parking, or, in Portland, we're now seeing requirements for bird-safe glass on many apartments. All of these things they have great roots, they have good ideas, but when you add them all together, they drive costs, which ultimately, as everyone knows, it impacts the renter. The developer will figure out a way economically to make those work, but ultimately it's the renter who pays the price through higher rents. The other thing that's been a huge issue for us in the last couple of years is security and operating costs. Again, I don't have to tell many of you what a change we've seen in the market in the last few years, especially in the urban core. But security has become, probably our number one issue at our operating properties. Just from a cost perspective, we've had to hire standing guards in places we've never had them before. We're much more focused on how we're securing buildings, how we're patrolling buildings. Making sure that our residents feel safe is a key issue for us, and one that will continue, at least in the medium term, we think, in the market. And does drive operating costs up. So that's something to continue to focus on for us. Obviously, construction costs and yields, for all the reasons, again, that Jerry was talking about, we've seen, an environment of, of cost escalation that's been not only dramatic upswings, but very, very unpredictable. We've, had a hard time getting our general contractors and our subcontractors to commit to pricing, even when we're at the point of signing a contract, which just has put a lot more pressure on us from a risk perspective in how we look at pulling our projects together. It used to be that at the loan closing, you'd sort of breathe a sigh of relief and say, okay, I know I have a construction budget number, I know what I'm going to build, I know approximately what I'm going to build it for, and that has changed entirely with subcontractors telling general contractors, I can't guarantee prices on commodities until they're on the truck. That drives, tremendous risk to us once we've sort of closed and set our construction loan amount and set our equity amount. When we can't predict that anymore, and we have to go back to our equity partners or our banks and say, sorry, we thought we knew what this was going to cost us, but it's changing. That's a new ballgame for us entirely, and one that we've really had to be thoughtful about how we're managing that risk around. So it's just, driving uncertainty in the market. And then financing challenges going forward. Interest rates have gone up. We're seeing, construction loan interest rates going up. We're seeing permanent loan interest rates going up. I heard a new to me and very frightening term last week, which is a cash-in refinance. Never thought that was going to be something that I had to do, where I had to bring money to my refi. Normally that's the time we take money out and return equity to our investors. There's situations now where the opposite is happening because of the way that the market dynamic is working. And then obviously, we'll continue to have a perception problem here in Portland. We love our downtown. We're very invested, especially in the Central East Side, and it's been a big challenge for us, not only talking with residents about why they should live here, but with investors and providers of financing about why they should continue to invest in Portland. So I'll try to end on a positive note. We continue to feel positive about the Pacific Northwest in this market. We're a long-term outlook company, and I think many of the development community here in Portland is here to stay, has a longer-term outlook. I would say that generally speaking, the short term is a challenge, and for folks who are sort of in the market to build and sell really quickly, the next couple of years are a challenge and are really kind of causing people to scratch their heads and feel a little bit uncertain. But for those of us who are in the market and want to stay for a long time, the demographics are positive. And we do believe that Portland will recover. We're a resilient city. We're a great place to live. So we do remain positive on this market overall. We'll continue to focus on those main locations. maybe do a little bit of work here and there in the suburbs, but generally continue to be an urban-focused, transit-oriented focused company, and keep our focus on what residents want, what those demographic shifts will continue to mean as people sort of come out of COVID, the way households are going to be forming. We'll be keeping a very close eye on that. We'll be talking to all of you who are operating properties, watching what's happening at our own properties to really figure out, how do we continue to meet the demands of our community here in Portland. So with that, I will call it to a close. So thank you all very much for having me today.